I was feeling sick. The standing applause made me feel sick. It seemed to me that Hollywood has no guts. In 1998, Jim Carrey almost drowned while making a movie. It looked like he was acting to the workers. The storm machines kept going while he went under wearing wet wool that made him feel like he was made of concrete. He put up his hand, which was the agreed-upon safety sign, but no one moved. I got to play Jim Carrey, who is a great movie star. Just what happened in those last few seconds before he reached the edge? What was the point of making him sit in a bathtub for 4 hours until his co-star passed out? The stories in his most famous movies show a man who pushed himself to do things that most artists would never do. In 1974, Jim Carrey was 12 years old when everything went wrong in his life. In Scarborough, Ontario, one week there was a small amount of relief, and the next week it was his father, Percy. I lost my job as an accountant, which paid the bills. The 6-person family went from living in a normal house to a beat-up Volkswagen van in an instant, driving through the suburbs of Toronto in search of a place to stay. For months in 1975, they parked near Lake Ontario and tried not to be seen while police moved them from place to place. When the van got too crowded, Jim and his brother John even moved into a leaky tent by the water. As winter crept in, it rained and soaked their sleeping bags. They used public bathrooms to clean up, skipped meals, and learned how to live on whatever they could find. As a way to find a place to sleep, Jim cleaned the floors at Titan Wheels. Percy looked for odd jobs. Because he was so tired, his scores dropped, and the kid who always got us started failing classes. He said years later that being poor felt so heavy that it almost broke him. And the only way he could keep from breaking was to be funny. After that, school never got better. The firing took place the week of January 17, Jim's 12th birthday. Within months, the family had to move out, and Jim tried to work night shifts at Aldershot High School while also taking care of his family. He was 16 years old when the stress finally stopped him from going to school. He cleaned the plant from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. every week, which added up to 72 hours. The long, hard journey of traveling almost 50 kilometers just to get back to school while half asleep. At the end of the spring term, he had failed English and math, and the teachers hardly noticed the quiet kid slouched at his seat. He quit school for good on his 16th birthday, January 17, 1978. Someone had to give him money every night because he was making $3.75 an hour. He connected everything he could. He would steal even $20 or $40 at a time, even though his brothers tried to help. He was down to his last 25 pounds and got so angry in class that he threw a desk at a mean kid. That anger turned into fuel. He went into Toronto comedy clubs in 1979 like he had nothing to lose. Before that fall, he showed signs of what kind of person he wanted to be. He sat at a school desk when he was 10. And filled 50 pages of lined paper with cartoons and puzzles that he wrote by hand. He gave copies to his friends for 25 cents and made money for lunch by making them laugh. When the teacher praised it in class, everyone cheered. But later, bullies tore pages out of it and laughed at him. He tried again, though. When he was 12, he went to talent shows and pretended to be Elvis Presley. 400 kids watched him swivel his hips and sneer through Hound Dog in a school hall. He got $5 in first place. Then he tried doing versions of his mother Kathleen when she was having a bad day. He did this to lighten the mood in the house. People in the crowd clapped for a short time. Then they lost their job, and the stage was gone. He even sent his joke book through the mail. He went to the Carol Burnett show when he was 10 years old and begged to be hired. He was chasing a dream before he was old enough to do so. At home, the darkness got worse. Price tried to kill himself more than once. In the summer of 1976, he walked into Highway 401 traffic. Jim pulled him to the side of the road while cars drove by quickly. Percy took 40 Valium pills in October 1977. Jim found him at 4 a.m., after working all night in the plant. Foam at his lips, and the sirens of ambulances grow louder. He lived, but the harm was done. Even though Jim was only 14, he was already taking care of the house while his mother was high on painkillers. He tried again near Eglinton Avenue in 1978, but cops pulled him away from the edge. Jim learned early on that even grown-ups can mess up. Putting it all together, he made a mask. By the 1980s, he had to accept that he was still scared, and that the crazy, smiling comedy was how he dealt with things he couldn't change. On January 17, 1979, the day he turned 17, he quit the business. Taking off his janitor tag, he packed a bag with a little more than $100, and hitched a ride to Yuck Yuck's comedy club. In front of 12 drunk strangers, he bombed. Did not stop. He slept on the floor of the bathroom and asked for money on the street medians. He only made enough to send home $50 a week. After a few months, he opened for Rodney Dangerfield and was put in the Real Focus, even though it was still shaky. His shows were all over Toronto by 1980. He moved to Los Angeles by 1981. He checked himself out for $10 million on Thanksgiving 1995 because there were nights when he didn't believe anything. It was like a promise that he kept it folded up in his pocket. He tried his hand at acting on TV for the first time with the show The Duck Factory in 1984. It only had 13 episodes and got terrible numbers. In hope, he moved his parents to Los Angeles, but he had to send them back because it made him look bad. He went back to stand up and tried out different routines that didn't always work for weeks at a time. In 1986, he met Melissa Walmer at the Comedy Store. They got married in 1987, and soon after, he held his daughter. Things became more important. Getting after a dream was no longer just for himself. He got small parts in movies like Finders Keepers, A Line, Peggy Sue Got Married, A Scene, and The Deadpool, A Moment. Then came Earth Girls Are Easy in 1988, and Damon Wayans saw something in him. He told his brother Keenan Ivory Wayans about this tall Canadian man with a voice that could change into any shape. Tried out for and started in Living Color in 1990. He almost missed the chance. Talks almost broke down, and someone else was about to be cast. The door did open, though. When it first aired in April 1990, the show changed everything. There was Fire Marshal Bill, Vera DeMilo, and other crazy characters that seemed to have come straight from his childhood survival skills. 3 times, he failed to get on Saturday Night Live, but now he was taking scenes and making things go faster. After the movie, no one could ignore him. Jim Carrey only made $350,000 for Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, which was shot in Miami from May 10 to July 19, 1993. A lot of people on set were not sure about the movie, so the pay felt small. It was panned by critics before anyone even saw it. Siskel and Ebert said it was the worst movie ever made, and Jim Carrey was the worst character ever made 3 days before it came out on February 4, 1994. He was playing live in a Chicago restaurant when his manager told him the news. And that moment could have killed him. But when people saw the movie, everything changed. From a $15 million budget, it made $107.2 million around the world. All of a sudden, his fake laugh, his strange energy, and his made-up line, "Okay, then," got attention. He went from making $35,000 to $7 million for Dumb and Dumber by the end of that same year. It took place quickly. It was very loud. People in the crowd believed in him more than critics ever did, and it paid off. His love for what he did led him to make one of the weirdest choices in Ace Ventura. It was Jim Carrey's dream to have the death metal band Cannibal Corpse in the movie. He was crazy about adding them after seeing them on the Arsenio Hall show. It didn't make sense to the band. They were afraid of becoming a joke. Their names were and they were from Buffalo. Who would have thought that a popular sitcom would be after them? Carrey wanted them so badly that he changed the filming times to work with their tour plans. The cameo became a cult moment after they decided to do a shorter version of Hammer Smashed Face. Paul Mazurkiewicz, the drummer, said that they were both glad and shocked that Jim really wanted them. After Carrey got lucky, her life changed almost overnight. He made $15 million for Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls in 1995. That was 41.85% more than the first $35,000. The sequel made 7 times as much as it cost, which was $30 million. But being famous cost money. Carrey had trouble on set. He fired the first director, Tom DiCercio, and hired Steve Oedekerk in his place. Behind-the-scenes workers said he did strange things that were hard to predict. The event turned him off. He turned down The Mask 2's offer of $10 million because he didn't think it would be enough to beat him. After that, he didn't make another movie for almost 20 years, until Dumb and Dumber 2 came out in 2014. This is why there was no Ace Ventura 3. Carrey later said that going back to old parts was bad for her soul. He said that making a sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in 2022 felt a lot like copying yourself instead of coming up with something new. He didn't want to go back to figures. The movie companies knew that an Ace Ventura sequel would not work without Carrey. Because the one person who made the brand great wouldn't go back, it died. Jim's friendship with Tommy Lee Jones, who played Two-Face, caused the most trouble. They didn't start their fight by yelling at each other in front of cameras. It took place in a diner without any noise. When Jim walked into a place one night while they were still working, the maitre d' told him that Tommy Lee Jones was eating in a corner booth. Jim chose to say hello. He walked over to Jones and said hello as he told the story years later. He then watched as the blood left Jones's face. As if he were in the middle of a dream, Jones shook himself awake. Where he was killing him. Jim said it felt like that. Jones gave him a hug, leaned in close, and said, "I hate you. I don't like you at all." When Jim sat down and tried to ask what was wrong, Jones said the famous line, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery." Jim was shocked when he left that meeting. In the end, director Joel Schumacher agreed with Jim's story. He said Jones was mean to Carrey while they were filming. Norm Macdonald also talked about the fight in a public way. A lot of people who were there said that jealousy was to blame. In 1995, Jim Carrey had just finished a great run of movies that smashed box office records. Tommy Lee Jones was a well-known and respected serious actor who was known for stealing scenes. Someone who is used to being the center of attention in a room. To be fair, Schumacher said that Tommy stole the show, but you can't steal a scene from Jim Carrey. It's not possible. Jones didn't seem to like that fact. Jones didn't like how balanced things were, and Jim himself said that was what he thought was wrong. There could have been seeds there even before that. Producer Peter McGregor Scott came to work on the client with the Batman Forever story while Schumacher and Jones were on set. He hoped Jones would play the liar. Jones read it first and said he didn't get it. He agreed after more talks, flew to Burbank, and joined the project. Back then, Jim Carrey was already being pushed as the main bad guy in all the early ads. Jones may have thought that Two-Face would play a bigger role in the story, but he soon found out that the studio and the marketing machine were going to focus on the Riddler. There was a strange, one-sided fight between those with high hopes, pride, and money at stake. That wound has never really healed. The last time they worked together was on Batman Forever, which was in 1995, and Jones has never responded to the words in public. This is Jim sharing the story of that terrible night. He still loves him and calls him a great actor. How Jim worked on Batman Forever also showed how hard he would work to get a part. With its question mark-shaped handle, the Riddler's cane turned into a toy and a weapon in his hands. He broke and bent so many that at least 100 canes were used in the process. He threw them over his shoulder, hit the set with them, and even broke pieces of the roof. Val Kilmer said that Jim would do anything, which made it hard not to laugh while he worked. It was Joel Schumacher who said that this person thinks and works harder than anyone else he had worked with. Then shows up and seems to happen out of the blue because all that work is hidden in the chaos. Even more powerful was the Riddler suit, which was too tight to the skin. Because the spandex showed every little change, Jim had to keep his weight and body shape slim. It added to the stress he was already feeling from being famous, having people expect him, and having to deal with mean co-stars. He hit that legendary pay level after Batman Forever and The Cable Guy. For a while, the $20 million check was his usual price. His first big hit was Liar Liar in 1997. Then came Me, Myself, and Irene, and finally How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Yes Man. The Cable Guy was an odd case. His salary alone ate up almost half of the movie's budget, and many reviewers didn't like it. And a lot of fans who thought the tone would be lighter. Liar Liar became very important because of that. That might have been the end of the 20 million run if it had failed. Instead, it was a big hit, got him another Golden Globe nod, and showed that even if the tickets were very expensive, his face on the poster would still sell them. He was ready to break his rules for a story he believed in, even though he had a lot of money. He did something strange when The Truman Show came out. He lost some money. He didn't ask for the standard $20 million, instead, he took about $12 million because he wanted the script and director Peter Weir wanted him. Weir thought that Jim was the only actor who could play that part with the right amount of humor, sadness, and innocence. He even put off production so Jim could finish what he had to do for the cable guy in Liar Liar. When they finally got to Jim's house, they started talking about ideas right away. From those early talks came the bathroom mirror scene in which Truman looks at himself and talks about this planet in the Burbank sky called Trumania. Jim made up that line and the whole beat on the spot. He almost died at the end. In the last scene set at sea, Jim was in a small boat by himself while huge jet engines and wave machines hit the tank around him. He was dressed in heavy wool clothes like a jacket, pants, and shoes, and everything got wet. He went below the water when the storm got worse. Having all that weight on him made him begin to drown. The agreed-upon safety sign for distress was a clenched fist raised, but the team thought he was still acting. Things that make storms kept going. The boat shook, but no one moved. He later said it was his last bit of energy, and he swam blindly and desperately until he got to the edge of the tank. He gasped for air as he pulled himself up, and the storm went on for another minute. It almost looked like the scene was real, so it ended up looking very real. Man on the Moon showed how far he could go mentally, while The Truman Show showed how emotional he could be. He didn't just play Andy Kaufman, he chose to hide and live as Andy. During the whole shoot, he wouldn't answer when called Jim. Some people had to call him Andy, and when he played Tony Clifton, they had to call him that. Later, the Netflix film Jim and Andy showed what that decision meant for everyone else. He sat down with Maria Kalana, Andy Kaufman's real daughter, and talked to her for an hour as if he were her real father. They even told each other, "I love you," like a parent and a child. Especially after professional wrestler Jerry Lawler, who had been in Kaufman's first wrestling acts, he picked fights and made people angry. Carrey spat on him to see how he really felt. Lawler hit him so hard at one point that he had to go to the hospital. Then Jim showed up with a neck brace on and said he wouldn't share scenes with Lawler. This made everyone wonder if he was hurt, on stage, or both. Later, the commentary for Man on the Moon made fun of the fact that Jim Carrey never showed up to work at all during the whole process. Every day, only Andy Kaufman or Tony Clifton showed up. After that, it should have been easy to play a green creature with fur. Instead, How the Grinch Stole Christmas turned into one of his worst physical situations. The makeup artists had to cover 92% of his body with fake hair made from yak hair sewed into spandex to make him look like the Grinch. The yellow contact lenses that were made to give him that creepy look felt big and rough. They hurt his eyes so much that in later scenes, his eye color had to be changed digitally so he wouldn't have to wear them. He lost it on the first full makeup day, which took 8.5 hours. He punched a hole in the wall of his trailer and told them he couldn't do it. In the world of intelligence, producer Brian Grazer brought in a specialist who taught officers how to do torture. This advisor gave Jim some strange ways to deal with things. Take in everything you see. Hit yourself in the leg. Get hit in the head by someone. Smoke as much as you can. Jim really did follow that advice. For 92 days of work, he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes every day while telling himself that it was for the kids. Makeup artist Kazuhiro Tsuji almost quit because he thought Jim was mean because he acted out when he was uncomfortable. After 2 weeks, they had only 3 days worth of tape that could be used because Jim would disappear or damage things out of anger. Then there was a different kind of pain on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Because Michel Gondry wanted the movie to feel real and raw, he didn't use a lot of computer effects. He liked useful tricks and natural light. Also, he didn't always tell people what to do in the normal way, which threw them off. It was really hard to write the scene in a cramped apartment where Joel and Clementine are sitting in the tub together. And let water run off the sides. They were in that tub for more than 4 hours while Gondry looked for something he couldn't quite explain. The stress made Kate Winslet tired and sick. She finally passed out. Gondry wanted to keep going, but Jim finally lost it and yelled at him for making her do too much. Later, the director said that he was afraid Jim would hit him at that time. During the filming, Gondry told Jim and Kate to make up scenes based on their real-life heartbreaks. On long practice tapes, they talked about their past relationships and how they really felt. A lot of those lines made it into the draft. There were also cuts that were not as loud. Ellen Pompeo was cast as Joel's ex-girlfriend because she looked a lot like Renee Zellweger, Jim's real ex-fiancée. Jim and Renee broke up right before the movie was shot. He was upset by seeing the resemblance on set, and he later said that choice hurt more than people thought. Even after many years, when digital mascots and video game adaptations were common, Jim kept going back to parts that let him show off his strange energy from the beginning. It was him again making the most noise on screen when he agreed to play Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog series. He is said to have made about $12 million for his roles as both Eggman and Gerald Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. In 2020, the first Sonic movie caused a lot of controversy when fans didn't like how the character was originally designed, so Paramount decided to make a whole new Sonic. After the design was changed, the movie quickly made around $319 million around the world. Inside the studio, everyone knew that Jim's name helped make that hit. He reportedly made up about 40% of his lines and jokes on the spot, turning the character into his own brand of bad guy. The way they were paid showed that Hollywood was still alive and well. Jim, the well-known person, made about $12 million. Ben Schwartz, who voiced Sonic, is said to have made around $500,000. Later, Keanu Reeves got about $5 million to play Shadow in the third movie. A lot of money was paid to Idris Elba to play Knuckles. The power of Jim's name on the poster was still enough to run a small marketing effort by itself. As his work went on, his public image came into conflict with that of newer stars in ways that were hard to predict. The Golden Globe Awards in 2014 were the start of one of the weirdest fights. He took the stage at the 71st Golden Globes on January 12 to give the award for Best Motion Picture in the musical or comedy category. Shia LaBeouf was in a lot of trouble at the time because he had been caught copying whole sections of Daniel Klaus's graphic book and even using other people's apologies as his own. Carrey brought up an old proverb that says it's easy to die and hard to be funny. Then gave it a little twist. That sounds like something Shia LaBeouf said. So young and smart. The whole room laughed out loud. For the crowd, it was just one quick joke in a long night of them. It changed things for Shia. Shia had just said a few days before, on January 10, that he was leaving public life for good. Just hours after the January 13 Golden Globes were over, he broke his word. Went to Twitter right away. The first thing he wrote about Jim was strange and funny. You have killed Jim Carrey if you explain him. No one is sure if it's real or not. In that way, he will never die. It didn't sound mad. The tone then broke. He put up a link to a Jane Carrey Band music video that has Jim's daughter in it and said that at least he wasn't arrested for having a sexual act on a major Los Angeles highway or leaving a love child behind. The claims were not true. Jim had never been caught doing that, and he had never left his daughter. Within minutes, Shia yelled on Twitter, "I'm not famous anymore," in all capital letters, even though she was saying she was leaving fame. It took less than 2 hours for the whole meltdown to happen. Soon after that, he started to delete. The post he made to say sorry was just as strange as the rant. He wrote that Jim had said he was very active with his daughter's life. And that he understood this and felt bad about the tweet he sent earlier. No one knows for sure if Jim called him or if Shia made that part up. Fans started to notice something even scarier. Shia was only following one person on Instagram, not Jim or another friend, but Jane Carrey. When she shared a video of her band, it made it look like she was obsessed and creepy. People who commented thought it was creepy behavior and were worried about the strange fight ended almost as quickly as it started. Shia did more and more strange performance art stunts, like taking to the red carpet with a paper bag over his head that said, "I am not famous anymore." Jim didn't answer in public. Later, People who knew him said that the attack hurt him, especially the things that were said about his daughter. It was already clear that he was very depressed, he had talked about it in interviews. Rather than making headlines by firing back, he chose to stay quiet to protect his child's privacy and his own mental health. Over time, the whole thing became known as one of the wackiest one-sided online fights of all time. That time in his life was not all superhero movies and award shows. He had another side to him. From 2005 to 2010, he was in a long-term relationship with Jenny McCarthy. It was full of both wild love and quiet pain. They began dating in December 2005, but they didn't tell anyone about it for a while. By the middle of 2006, they were well known to the public. For a while, they looked like one of the happiest Hollywood couples. On February 14, 2010, just a few weeks before they broke up, Jim rented a plane to skywrite J Heart J over Brentwood. After that, he sent a jokey tweet, telling Jenny that she had taken his heart, soul, and anything else she could find in his pants. It was grand and funny. The relationship was breaking down below. In 2004, Jim talked about his depression on a news show. He said it was a constant low level of hopelessness with ups and downs that felt like they were smoothed out by medication. He first tried Prozac and then vitamins and other things. Jenny was a public figure with a lot of energy who saw herself as a warrior mother. That kind of energy didn't always work for someone who wanted to be alone a lot to keep his fragile mental health in check. Later, reporters who were close to them said that his depression made the relationship hard and left gaps that they couldn't fill. They broke up in April 2010 and said so on Twitter. It seemed fair and calm at first glance. In June 2012, 2 years later, things got much worse. Jenny said on the Howard Stern show that her autistic son Evan, who had become close to Jim, still wanted to see him almost every week. She said Jim wouldn't talk to her and had pretty much disappeared from Evan's life. Her words showed a man who broke up with a child who still loved him. Jim replied with a statement. He told Evan that he loved him and would miss him and would always do what he thought was best for Evan's health. People who knew him well said Jenny hadn't actually tried to set up a meeting. Jenny said on air that she loved Jim, but as a parent, she wished he would keep in touch with the boy. The story led to more public discussion about the choices he made in his personal life. Those arguments were also mostly about marriage. Judy said Jim didn't want to get married again, and he agreed in an interview in 2007. He said they were going to never get married or divorced, which he thought was great. He didn't want to do it because of his first marriage to Melissa Womer, which lasted from 1987 to 1995. They broke up because his fame turned his life upside down. She told him one time that she would not stay married to him if he didn't come home and put his feet on the ground. He asked for a divorce in November 1994. He was wary of traditional commitments after that because of how bitter that time was. Things changed even more when Jenny married Donnie Wahlberg in 2014. According to some reports, Donnie didn't like that she kept calling Jim. Sources say he was afraid that Jim could still get her to leave him because of his charm. Even though those stories were made up, they did show a simple truth. Jim's relationships, both on and off screen, were always tense, with unfair power dynamics and a lot of unwanted attention from the public. Jim Carrey kept working even with everything going on. To bring Truman to the edge of the world, he almost drowned. He got lost in Andy Kaufman so much that he didn't know where the character ended. For The Grinch, he burned his eyes and skin with yak fur and yellow lenses. He then defended Kate Winslet in a bathtub while his own broken heart leaked into a script, and he later twisted his body and voice again to make a blue video game bad guy seem strangely human. He had to deal with jealousy in restaurants, cold stares on set, make-up chairs that were like torture, and Twitter storms while he was depressed. Some relationships fell apart even after he sent love letters into the sky. M.